In live production, consistent framing plays a key role in making cuts work seamlessly from shot to shot. It's why this cut from a wide to a tight works, and why this cut back to a wide doesn't work. See the difference? It's all about the eyes. We connect with people through their eyes, and we don't want to be searching around the frame for where the eyes have changed or moved every time we change cameras. On some levels, this is nothing new. Generally, shots should be framed with the rule of thirds in mind, which simply states if you draw a tic-tac-toe board on the frame and place your subject on or near one of those frame guidelines, the subject should be framed properly. If the subject is directly facing the camera, keep them centered on the upper third of the frame, on that top line. If the subject is not directly facing the camera, place them closer to where the two lines intersect, off to the side a little bit. This creates face space for them where they're speaking. And that's basically framing by the rule of thirds. As a foundational rule, the rule of thirds is great, but it's not enough. The real key to framing is keeping your eye lines consistent. As the old saying goes, eyes are the window to the soul. If the eye level is jumping up and down from shot to shot, it's really difficult and jarring to follow along with a cut. But if the eyes do line up consistently, then cuts can go almost completely unnoticed. Now let's look at some practical examples. Here's a multi-view from a recent service. Each shot individually is framed as you would expect, according to the rule of thirds. And as we move from camera to camera on the cut, the eyes stay at the same height on the screen, and it's not distracting. We need to lead the viewer's eyes where they need to go. Alright, so now let's look at the band framed up on the multi-view in another scenario. Almost all of the shots are, as we would expect, obeying the rule of thirds, but watch what happens when we draw a line across the multi-viewer. All of the eyes are at essentially the same level. That makes it so viewers' eyes don't have to jump around from cut to cut to remain connected with the story. It just feels right. We can keep looking at the same general area on the screen as a viewer, even though cameras are changing, and still feel connected to the action. That's the key. This concept applies equally for both music, speaking, interviews, panels, just about any other production scenario. Where you place the subject's eyes is how you lead the viewer's eyes in a live production. Let me say that again. Where you place the subject's eyes in how you frame up your shots is how you lead your viewer's eyes in your live production. Take a look at this 2-up shot. From time to time, in our gatherings, if two people are leading the same song, it's fun and I think makes sense to put both of them up on the screen at the same time. We're doing this using a super source on the switcher, but it doesn't really matter how we're achieving this technically. What matters is when they're framed up, they need to be framed up both in terms of zoom and pan and tilt so that their eyes line up on the frame. Otherwise, one person feels superior, larger, more important, or more emphasized than the other. But when their eyes are the same, the shot works. In a sermon, it's the exact same thing. I typically want to cover sermons with at least 2 cameras. And again, the eyes are what need to stay lined up from every single angle, especially those 2 main cameras. One of those cameras is generally a tight follow, and the other camera is a wider head to toe. But with each camera, it's with the eyes that line up exactly. I'm not totally concerned about how much space is equal above the head, but I want to see their eyes in the same place. The one potential exemption to this rule is wide shots. In the scenario I showed you a moment ago, even the wider cutaway shot lined up with the eyes in the tight shot. And again, this is a good idea if you can make this happen. But for a wide or ultra wide shot, it often doesn't make sense to follow this rule exactly. Placing the eyes at the same level for a scenic shot will usually show off a ton of floor and feel weird. Why break the rule for a wide shot? It's because we're keeping our subject in the same place. On the wide shot, the subject really isn't the speaker at that point. It's really more of the surroundings. So placing the viewer's attention on the environment, where their eyes are already looking from the previous shot, isn't really an exception, but it's more of an application of this rule. Framing for eyes isn't just for the source on the screen. Remember, we want to derive where the eyes of the viewer are at all times. So if we want them to look at a wide shot of the environment, then we're going to frame that up in the same place where they were looking in the previous shot, where the eyes of the speaker were, and then bring it back. In some ways, we could think of the big wide shot as another character in the story that we're cutting to back and forth in the conversation as needed, and not specifically a shot of the speaker per se. So the point is this: one of the best ways to improve your framing and your live productions is to frame for eyes, and not for the rule of thirds alone. Frame for the eyes of your subject, And also, be mindful of where you're telling your viewers to look. Ultimately, eyes are how you communicate with people. It's how you connect. They're the windows to the soul. They're the subject of your subject. So, always frame for eyes, and you'll lead your viewers' eyes exactly where you want their eyes to go.